Hey there, Tracy here for Not Too Shabby Shop. And today's video, I'm going to show you how I made this cute little pot flip card. So let's go ahead and jump right into the video. Okay, so here we go. I've got most things already prepared here for you. So I thought that I would just go ahead and show you how to make this pot flip card. Now I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I have a die set that does this, but I want to show you how to do it so that you don't have to have a die set, because first of all, the die set's retired, and you know, sometimes it's handy to just know how to do something without. So I'm moving aside my prototypes here. I'm going to show you what you need, or what I needed anyway, which is a ruler, obviously, a pencil that I consistently lose, a bone folder, a corner rounder. I took out my envelope punch, but I don't end up using it. And then a glue eraser, and that's optional, but I'm messy, so there's that. So I started out here with a top folding red card base that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I rounded the corners at 7 millimeters. So every corner that needs to be rounded going forward needs to be 7 millimeters. And then I took a piece of paper from the Yummy Strawberries paper pad, and I cut that down to 4 by 5 1/4 and rounded the corners. And then I'm going to be using a couple of stamps from the stamp sets and ink, you know, the things that you need. And I don't know, there we go. That's what I'm looking for. And the Cottage die cut pieces, because time saver. So I'll probably use one Very Sweet Girl and one of the sentiments from here, and I'll decide when the time comes. So I'm going to set those aside for now because I don't need them right now. And then I've cut myself a little scallop circle here, and it's just kind of a base for the rest of the card. So I'm going to go ahead and glue down the parts, because in this card you want to decorate the front first, because once you get the mechanism inside, it's kind of hard to make sure everything's nice and glued down on the front. You want to be able to have this be flat. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that down, and I don't want to add a lot of bulk to the top of the card either. And I'm going to grab a couple of these ephemera pieces. I want the big smiley strawberry and the little girl, and then I'm going to do a sentiment, and I'll do the sentiments on camera. So I haven't decided yet how I'm going to put things, but I'm just going to start putting and hold my breath. So originally I did this, and I was doing it live, but I forgot to turn my microphone on. So I'm just want to show you that I'm just trimming off this little, sometimes there's a little piece of flashing left over, and you can file those off or just trim them off. And I am not doing what I typically do, what you typically see me do, which is cut off the white edges. I want to leave those on for this time. And so I've got the sentiment here, and I'm going to look for a piece of the red scrap, and I'm going to white heat emboss that, I believe. So I've got a piece of red scrap from one that I messed up that I cut with my die. And I'm going to go ahead, and that's going to stick because I've not used this stamp before. So I'm going to condition it a little bit. And then I'm going to use my anti-static powder tool just to make sure that I don't get excess embossing powder. I'm going to grab my embossing powder and a white sheet of paper, and I like to just put it underneath so it's quick and handy. And I just touched my paper, so I'm going over it with the anti-static powder again. And then I'll use my embossing ink. Use what you have. And I'm going to go once and twice, but I'm not going to press super hard because I don't want it all smushed out. And then I'll set that aside, and I'll pour the embossing powder on. And I like this Brutus Monroe Alabaster. It works the best for me as far as white goes. So that's what I used. And then I'll just go ahead and clean up my excess here, hoping not to get too much on my mat. And I realized that I left a big space here, and you can see my whole workspace there almost. But I wanted to make sure that I get everything in the picture. So I heat emboss that, and I'll let it cool off for a second before I trim it. And then I'm going to grab my trimmer, and I'm going to use the edge of my guard here as a guide and just put the letters right up to the edge of it and slice that off. And then I'm going to use a punch to make a little kind of flag situation. I don't know. Which one do I want? I think I want the outie. We've got an innie and an outie on this thing. This is apparently, I bought this, I think, from Stampin' Up. I've never been a Stampin' Up person. I started my stamping journey long after everybody else got their, they call it the gateway. It wasn't my gateway. Jennifer McGuire was. So anyway, I'm just kind of auditioning how I want these. Do I want just a little girl? No, I want that smiley strawberry. It's just too happy not to use. Okay, I've kind of got an idea how I want these. I'm just going to add some glue right to the middle of her. Layer where I want. Same with the strawberry. And then I can go ahead and lay down my sentiment. And again, I'm not popping anything up on the outside of the card because I'll have plenty of bulk inside. Just get that on there straight. That's ready to go. We'll set that aside while we prepare our mechanism. So, what I have here is a piece of paper that is 9 inches by 3 inches. And what I want to do here is, and I'm just writing this down for you so you can see it. And hopefully I remember. That's part of the reason why I recorded this thing live, was so that I would, in case I forgot. I have it all written down here, but that doesn't mean I can actually read what I wrote. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to score this right down in the middle lengthwise. So that's scored at 1.5 inches. Okay. And I like using this thing for scoring versus a scoreboard, because I don't know how it happens, but mine always tends to want to get off track. So, and then I'm going to score it at 4.5. So I'm scoring it in half both ways, basically. Okay, got those scores done. Let's move this out of the way here for a minute. And I'm going to go ahead and fold and burnish those scores because I want to be able to see the very middle. And I mean, you could mark lines if you wanted to, but I'm lazy. There's plenty of marking to come, so no worries about that. And you don't even need to do all these extra steps that I do. You don't actually have to do them, but it really reduces bulk in the card. And so that's what I like. And this paper, by the way, is about an 80-pound paper. So now I can see the middle. And I like to score it both ways, fold and score it both ways so that it's nice and bendy. And I can get the paper. I can start talking nice to the paper and having it speak nicely back to me. And these are the inside pieces that, I don't know, I knocked out of there somehow. All right, so I'm going to grab my ruler now, and I'm going to make some marks. So first of all, I'm going to make a line at 1/2 inch on both sides of the long edge. So I'll make a line there, and I'll flip it over. My ruler just happens to have that 1/2 inch line on it. It's a quilting ruler, so quilting rulers are great if you don't have some. So that's 1/2 inch in, and I'm just marking that down so I remember what to tell you. Now I'm going to mark in from the left side at 3 inches and at 2.5 inches on all sides. So I'll do the top and bottom of this side, and then I'll flip it over. Okay, we'll do this side at 3 inches and 2.5. And then again at 3 inches and 2.5. I'm always losing this ruler, and it's a bummer because it's my favorite ruler. I don't know why. Okay, so I've got those spots marked. Now I need to mark some other spots here. And what I want to do is on the top right, I'm going to mark in at 1 inch. And then from that center line, I'm going to mark it at 1/4 inch. So it's basically 1/4 inch from there. And I'm going to do this on opposite sides, and that's parts that we're going to cut out. And I'm just kind of writing these things down again. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. That's the opposite side. So I'm going to mark at 1 inch and then 1/4 inch. So opposite and flipped. You'll see here in a minute. And then I'm going to go ahead and draw a line between those two lines. And that's the part right there that we're cutting out. So I'll flip it over, and you see they're catty corner to each other. I don't know any other word for that but catty corner. Opposite, I don't know. So those are parts that we're cutting out. All right. Now, what I want to do here is I'm going to make my X now. And so I want to go from the 3-inch mark to the 3-inch mark on opposite corners. And I'm going to draw a line, making sure that my line goes through the middle of those folds. And then I'm going to flip it and do the other side. Just want to make sure that that's right smack in the middle, as close as I can get it. Okay, so that's another place we're going to score, but we're not going to score it right this moment. Now, at that 2.5-inch line, I'm just going to draw a line on either side from the top of our X. Okay, we're going to be cutting that part out as well. All right, we're ready to start doing our cutting, but before we do, let's go ahead and score those X's, or score that X. So I'm just lining this up, and this is the other reason I love this scoreboard, is I can actually see where my scoring's going to happen. So I'll line that up with the indentation in the scoring and cutting board, and I go a couple, 3 times over it. Just I do, that's all. Just want to make sure I remember to get those scores in there, because I'm going to be folding that. Ideally, you would fold it now, but I forgot. But we'll fold it later. It doesn't really matter until I try and make the mechanism work. Now we're going to do some cutting. And again, you can completely skip that, but it's really going to pull some bulk out of there. So what I'm going to do is these parts that I have marked with an X, I'm going to cut these out. Now, if you didn't know, on YouTube, you can run a video at quarter speed. So if you want to follow along or try and do this, just slow the video down so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm just trimming this in. And it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, friends, but, you know, do the best you can. Now, if you had a good corner rounder, you could round that corner too, but I don't, so I'm just going to trim that corner kind of with my scissors, eyeballing it. Doesn't have to be perfect. Going to do the same with the other side. So trimming that in so that kind of is like a file folder. Just throw those away. I'm going to trim these corners off that I have marked. Okay, and then I'm going to, nope, we're not doing that. We're going to basically trim up to our X at that 1/2-inch mark that we made. And we're going to do that on either side. So you see how it's looking so far? Trim there. We'll trim up to that X. Okay, so we'll get that part trimmed out. And this is the hardest part of the whole card, and it's not even that hard. It's just a lot of steps. And then I'm going to go ahead and use my corner rounder and round up these other corners because I can. And so, again, I'm doing that at 7 millimeters, and you'll see later why that matters. Okay, this mechanism's ready to go, except for I did not use my bone folder. I'm going to take my eraser and erase all my marks. You don't necessarily have to because it's not really going to show, but just in case. So I just want to make sure that that's all nice and clean. Get that eraser gunk off of there. And then, so I want to start folding my mechanism. And this is the point where I realize I forgot to burnish my X. When I'm trying to make this go, I'm like, why won't this go? Oh, wait a second. Oh, duh. let's try folding these over and burnishing. So just that mark where you made the X, make sure you burnish those. Okay, there we go. Now it shouldn't be as difficult. Now, friends, this part can get complex because you get confused on how it should go. But the long legs should go inside and the body should go outside. So the big triangle's on the outside. And before I burnish that, I kind of hold the legs together like so. And then I'll burnish it down. And I'll flip it over and burnish the other side. So that's how that should look. Like a little house with, I don't know, shaps. I don't know. All right, so at this point, I'm going to measure in at 2 1/8. So that's the middle of the card, because I want to make sure my point lands right in the middle. And I'm just going to make a little dot, and you won't see that, so I'm not going to worry about erasing it. And then I'm going to take my little mechanism here, and I'm going to make sure I don't have any more pencil marks because I just noticed one. Let's get that off of there. Again, you probably won't see it, but just in case. And, you know, I want to recommend not using too heavy of a cardstock for this purpose for a couple of reasons. So sometimes a heavy cardstock like the red one that I have there will crack when you fold it, and we don't want those cracks. They look funky. You know, it'd be great if I actually had the red mechanism in there. So what I've done is I've pointed that arrow top at the top of my card, making sure my card can fold, and I put glue only on that triangle portion. And so now I just want to put glue on the other triangle portion. And I want to get my glue on there so it doesn't leak over best I can. And I'm just going to fold my card down, give it a press. And then what I like to do is I like to take my magnet and just set my magnet on top of there while that glue dries. You really want your glue to dry before you start messing with it. Okay, now we've got this piece, and this piece is 10 1/4 by 3. And we want to do some scoring on that. So I'm going to use my little scoreboard on this. And I'm going to score first at 5 1/8, so I'm going to score it in half. Right down the middle. And then I'm going to score it at 2 1/4. Now, this could be a little bit more than 2 1/4, but I'm not messing around with fly's eyelashes today. This works just fine. So that's where we're keeping it, friends. So then flipped it over and scored it at 2 1/4 on the other side. And then I'm going to do my folding. So I'm going to mountain fold and burnish, making sure that the open edges are even with each other. When you see what happens here, though, when I fold this up, you can see I've got a little bit of excess there, but it's okay. It works. So don't freak out. Don't freak. And then I'll fold up the other side, and there should be an equal amount of little extra space on there, and that's just fine. Okay, so now we've got this little seagull. Now I'm going to take the folded edges, and I'm going to take my 7mm corner rounder, and I'm going to round those corners in the middle. And then I'll take these folds and round those corners. Again, always use the same size of corner rounder on all your corners in this card. Okay, clip those. And then I just need to clip the 4 corners. And there we've got our little scene builder for the inside of the card. Come on. Make sure you get your debris out of there or it won't cut pretty. And so it's going to sit in the card like that with the mountainside out. Now I've got all of these little pieces. They're 2 3/8 by 2 7/8. And I'm going to go ahead and put this together. First I want to stamp, because one of them I'm going to have stamped. The rest I'm going to have pattern paper from the paper pack that goes with the strawberries. I'm going to pull my stamp, and I am, of course, going to take my MISTI tool because there's just no way I can not use that thing. Seriously, hand stamping is not my thing. I'm going to get this stamp right in the center here. And it's going to stick, no big deal. It's because it's a brand new stamp. I haven't used it yet. So I'm going to condition it just by rubbing it with my finger. And then I'm going to use VersaFine Clair in strawberry. Why not? Seems to be right. And I'm not pressing super hard. I don't want it to mush out, but I want to make sure I've got nice thick ink on there because I want a clear heat emboss over this for 2 reasons. One reason is because it looks good. The second reason is then I don't have to worry about ink smearing because it's wet. So you got a double purpose there. But the VersaFine Clair in any of the colors will emboss because it stays wet for long enough. So we'll go ahead and get this heat embossed. Try not to burn it. I don't know why I've been burning things lately. Okay, and so I think I want that to be that one. So I'm going to go ahead and put the pattern paper ones on first. Little matte layers. Just leaving a tiny, tiny border all around. Gosh, I hate covering up those big strawberries, but the big strawberries are not going to work for my purpose with the ephemera that I picked. They'll get lost, and I hate to bury them. I hate to bury those gorgeous strawberries, even though I'm burying them anyway. And then I'll go ahead and put the sentiment piece on. Get that glued down. Okay, we're ready to go with that. And now I'm going to do my ephemera pieces. So I think I'm going to put the little girl right here. So it looks like it's the same girl with her hat off. She has a cute little bow in her hair. And I'm going to put the smiley strawberries because I can't help it. And little butterflies. They're just so sweet, those smiley strawberries. Okay, get the little butterflies. I'm not sure where I want to put this, but I think I'll put it right there. Okay, so we're ready to put this together. So I'm going to open up my card, and there's my mechanism. Okay, so you see on the top and the bottom, there's the part with the curved edges. And that's what we're going to use to measure where to put our pieces, where to glue. So I'm going to add glue all the way up and around that part on the left side. Make sure I have plenty of glue. Then I'm going to take my little card folder setup thingy and I'm going to lay it directly on top, matching that rounded corner. So I'll just move around. This is why I like to use wet glue for this. And then just push down. I want to make sure that's glued down pretty well before I do the other side. And the other side we're going to glue at the top portion. So I'm going to fold these down so I can kind of burnish this one side. There we go. And then I'll go ahead and add glue on this side. And so you have a nice big surface here, and this is why I like this method versus the straight method, because you've got a good surface to glue those down on. And I'll just kind of match that little edge up and that little rounded corner. Just give it a good press, make sure that it's all pressed in. And friends, we're about done here. I appreciate you hanging around for a little bit longer of a video. You can always watch it in double time if you want to, because maybe you have this die too, or a die similar or something. So the next thing I want to do here is something I learned while on a live with Lynn, was about talking sweet to your cards. So you kind of have to, in a card with a mechanism like this, you kind of have to train it to behave. So the first time you try to close it, it might act funky. And I see a little bit of glue there, so I'm taking my glue eraser. See, that's why we needed it. I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So we're going to open this, and it pops out this adorable little scene. You could put anything you want. And see, now it struggles a little to close. So I'm going to just talk real sweet and show it how to close. And open it again, and close it again, and open it again. The more you do it, the easier this pops out. See? Now it's not forcing me to make it. It's doing what I asked it to do because I asked really nicely. And there's our card. I hope you like it. I hope you try this. It's a lot of fun. And there are so many possibilities in this situation. So don't forget to leave us a thumbs up. I will have the things you need linked in the description box down below. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, please consider subscribing and hit that notification bell if you want to get notified every time we upload a video. Take care, everybody. Here's some still photos, and thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.